Hi, I'm Jennifer George, and I'm one of the employment lawyers at Isaac Brandt, Lebman & Teeter in Columbus, Ohio. This is the third of three sessions pertaining to the Fair Labor Standards Act. And in this third section, we are going to deal with tips and general discussion on how to avoid liabilities as an employer under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Let's look at, we talked about as an employer, you could potentially be liable for the past 3 years, up to 3 years for an employee's past work. With that said, as far as record keeping, you may want to look at a record retention schedule that should be recorded and abided by consistently throughout the company, that you retain such payroll records for 3 years. Additionally, if one of those inspections or investigations is initiated by the wage and hour division that we discussed in the first session, you're going to have 72 hours by which to collect all that necessary documentation pertaining to a given employee. So you want to have an organized and efficient manner so as to keep the necessary documents that would pertain to the FLSA type issues. Finally, you want to look at your policies and procedures. Do you have in place standard guidelines by which the amount of work worked by an employee is compensated? For example, in addition to the 40 hours plus that is reimbursed to an employee at a time-and-a-half rate, it can be given one of two ways. It may be given monetarily, which I think most of us think of, but it may also be given in what is called compensatory time. The key is, for it to be reimbursed on a compensatory time basis, that must be agreed to in advance of when that employee performed the work, which goes back to your policies and procedures. Do you have in place a policy and procedure that provides for that? A next great tip is that when an employee receives reimbursement for work performed, whether by compensatory time or whether by monetary, have them sign off that in fact what they are receiving compensation for is accurate. Next, beware of the employee who may be the very motivated employee who likes to stay after to finish a given task or feels better because they think they do a better job if they can wrap up even after the workday is done. Do you have policies and procedures in place that provide for whether the employee needs to ask permission to do that, or whether there is a standard and accurate record if the employee does accrue time past that quitting time? And finally, remember what we talked about to determine if an employee should be getting overtime in the first place. There should be a job audit performed, which looks at and dissects what that employee does on a daily basis. That job audit is performed best by a legal professional, and if there are ever any questions raised, a legal professional can best defend the basis by which the decisions were made to make an employee either exempt or non-exempt from the overtime provisions of the FLSA. Now, if you have any other questions on the FLSA, please don't hesitate to call us here at Isaac Brandt, Lebman & Teeter. We're at 614-221-2121. Thank you.